Hello, everybody. Bienvenido a todo. Welcome to Fabnet. Forgot that all for a second with me, Fabnet, and we are in BeamNG.Drive, obviously, and we're here for another base model challenge where I take the base model of a car, well, basically of a mod that I've downloaded, replicating a real car, and drive it around the Nürburgring. As a reminder of what the current top five is, it's pretty overwhelmingly Germanic, but we do start with a Skoda Superb 1.4 turbo, which is actually pretty impressive because I do remember trashing that car a bit as I went round. And then we've got a BMW 520, and then we have a Mercedes 220, and then we had what was the reigning champion for quite a few months, which is the 5 Series 520D diesel, but that was usurped by the BMW X5 3-litre diesel. So obviously, the BMWs are just, and Mercedes are going to always rule the roost, I think. Skoda only had, I don't know how that Skoda got there. I mean, it really must have been a powerful car. Because a lot of the car, there have been bigger engine cars I've taken around that didn't get around that quickly. I mean, there's been cars I've taken around that didn't do as much damage, but and still got around slower. But today we are with a Mitsubishi Outlander 1.8. So this isn't the hybrid version. It's not the electric version. It's just the petrol version. So we'll see. We'll see. It's a long way from a 3-litre diesel like that X5 is, but you never know. I haven't driven a Mitsubishi around the track before, I don't think. So let's see. Let's see what happens. Could be something magical. I don't think it will be, but let's see. Right, everything loaded. And go. Yeah, not exactly fast off the start line, but oh, we have a little screen with looks like it's got Apple CarPlay or Android Auto plugged in. Trying, because you know the rules by now. This car, like, the reason I do this in this game is because this game simulates physics very well. So if you crash the car, and do some damage to it, you can make it like very hard for yourself to try and finish. And I think in my last video, I did that with the Kia Rio. I broke the front half shaft or something, and I had to restart. Or maybe it was the Volvo. I can't remember. But like, if you damage it too much, then you just can't carry on. So it's not just about being like, oh, like, how fast can I get around? It's how fast can I get around without doing enough damage to the car to stop it. And this isn't like Gran Turismo where you can just crash in, like run alongside the barrier or around. If you try and do that, you will damage the car beyond any useful, beyond repair. So then you'll have to restart. And with a big wallowy SUV like this, I mean, the good thing is it's not very fast. But it's wallowy around corners, like you can feel it understeering a lot. Ooh, lovely. See, I just have to say, I have seen quite a few of these around. I think they might have been one of the like more mainstream hybrids or plug-in hybrids, because I could definitely remember seeing them about a lot. And I think they might be one of the first, like the last Mitsubishis that aren't just a rebadged Renault or Nissan. Honestly, the Mitsubishi Colt, which is just a Clio with a Mitsubishi badge on top. No real attempt to change even the lights or anything. It's full on just the bumpers are exactly the same. It just has a different grille. I don't know what they call the one that is it the ASX, the rebadged Kajar? Is that what that Renault is called? Oh, hope it's living up to its SUV name now. Yeah, Mitsubishi Shadow of its former self. I don't know if it's fully owned by Renault, by Nissan, or it's a partnership deal or whatever. But yeah, you don't. I don't think we'll be seeing a Mitsubishi 3200 GT anytime soon. And to think, like Mitsubishi used to like partner with like Chrysler and stuff and give them car bodies, and I think the first Proton. I'm trying to think. Proton is a Malaysian brand that was like created by. I don't know if it was created by the Malaysian government or it was a private company, but they basically they partnered with Mitsubishi, who gave them the design for their first car. Whose name I can't remember. I'm sure it was just called Proton. Proton with a number, maybe. Proton, I don't think I'm not sure you ever saw them in. Well, actually, no. I'm pretty sure I've seen follow some pretty random Instagram pages for like old forgotten cars, and pretty sure I've seen some Protons that were sold in like Denmark and stuff, but I've never seen one in Spain. I mean, my assumption was literally that they only went to the UK because they were right-hand drive. Because uh, when I honk the horn, that's usually because I'm pressing the stick so hard. That's me trying to avoid crashing into a wall. Um, because in Malaysia they drive on the left in right-hand drive cars, like the UK. Um, and so I just assumed Proton just exported to the UK because they didn't have to spend any money on changing around the dashboard. But then I'm pretty sure I have seen pages where they oof where they were sold in left-hand drive countries. In any case, I don't think they're in Europe anymore. They're certainly not in the UK anymore. And of course, at the moment they leave the UK, they suddenly like get a whole rebrand and start making pretty cool-looking cars. Because when they were selling into UK, possibly Europe, their cars they were either really old designs or very odd new designs that didn't quite fit with the like contemporary. They look very out of date, but like, well, not even out of date. Like the last one I remember was called like the Proton Gen 2 or Gen 3, I think it was. Yeah, I think it was called Gen 2. Um, and it looked like a 90s Renault Megane, even though it was a brand new car. And at some point there was a thought that it would have been the basis for the new mid-size Rover car that Rover was spent 10 years trying to get off the ground. And no, nothing ever came of it. But I remember it being pretty panned, like universally panned as like just a too cheap a product. Like there's cheap and then there's too cheap, and it was considered too cheap, and they left the UK soonish after. But they made another Super Mini. I don't know if that had a different name, but typically their Super Mini was called the Savvy, and it might have been called that. All right, no, let's get a picture now before I forget. Once again, not a criticism of the modeler, just an observation that some of the surfaces on this car look like they're completely dented. um, I think they could do with some smoothing. You see, it looks like someone's kicked in all that door, and I don't think it's supposed to look like that. Or maybe it is, but there was no indication that that was what the modeler was going for deliberately. And yeah, I understand how difficult it is, so I'm not trying to say like, oh, you should listen to me or anything, because I don't know how fucking difficult modeling is. Just an observation. Normal. Yes. I think I should blur the far out a bit more. Okay. Well, There we go. Oof. Those lights are weird, aren't they? I'm still trying to think, is like a texture thing that hasn't loaded in, or are they supposed to be like deathly red? They're quite cool though, if a bit distracting. Mind you, I mean, I don't think a Mitsubishi Outlander is necessarily going to be top tier stuff. Oh, I still surprise myself at how many corners that I usually get around perfectly. I somehow manage to screw up in a different car. Oof. Brum 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 brum. Driving. Yeah, I've been looking at some car reviews lately. All these new wave of Chinese cars that are coming in to Europe, like predominantly as like electric cars, but some of them are like some of them are hybrids or just even petrol. And it's quite fascinating. Like they all like the it's very strange how like the Chinese cars haven't made much of an impact in Europe, but now that they're coming in, a lot of the criticisms are very similar, but they're not necessarily what you'd expect. Like these cars are cheap cars generally. Like they'll often basically you'll be looking at something that should be rivaling in terms of its size and its the kind of underpinnings or drivetrain should be like compared to a Volkswagen Tiguan, but it's like significantly cheaper. But then the complaints about them aren't that, oh no, it feels too cheap. They're usually like, oh well, you know, the usability of the screen, everything is too hidden in the screen, and it's not easy to do things, or the chimes and the sounds it makes aren't aren't very nice. Because I mean, I think that's a problem with all cars, but they're not very easy to turn off. Is usually the problem. Because I think fortunately my car must have been one of the last few that wasn't made with like a mandatory squeaking sound to tell you when you're going over the speed limit. And the number plate, I mean, and that's good because the speed recognition is terrible in my car. It really will pick. I mean, to be fair, in Spain, that there are often service roads that run alongside motorways that have their speed limits right next to where the motorway, and I think it doesn't surprise me too much that the car picks it up. Um, but yeah. But anyway, so these Chinese cars, they're not being criticized because like, oh, you know, what a terrible car, too cheap, like, oh, it feels tinny or whatever. They're usually being criticized because of just ergonomics, really, and then sometimes driving dynamics are considered like, oh, the steering is too dull and lifeless. But there's one car called like a new one called Leapmotor, which is in technically a joint venture between Stellantis European and Leapmotor, which is a Chinese company, and the European models are like supposed to be a joint venture, and they're being made in Europe, I think, in Poland. But the cars are basically Chinese cars that are just being going to be manufactured here. Like you can tell from the way that they look that they are. Ooh, oh, 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 bet! Look at that! We knocked out the Superb and replaced it with a Japanese Mitsubishi. Get in. But yeah, just to finish that thought, it's interesting because it makes me wonder a lot of the issues that they identify with these cars that are coming in from China, and there's a lot of them that we try and think. So there's Leapmotor, there's Ebro, there's MG, but that's been around for a while and has already kind of has a base in Europe. There's what's it called? Oh, there's too many to think of. Oh, oh, I can't remember the name. Blah, 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 blah. Oh, what's it called? Oh, I can't remember the name. But there's like 6 or 7 that are there, and all of them basically have pretty easy problems to solve. If they just make better ergonomics in their screen, create some more physical buttons, maybe provide a slightly better ride quality, probably they're going to be. I mean, the biggest thing about them is going to be, are they reliable in the long term? Do they keep their resale values? Is there a decent support network? A lot of people keep saying that they are put off by Chinese cars because they don't think that they'll be able to find spare parts, stuff like that. But I've seen a few YouTubers say that that's just a myth. Um, so anyway, I mean, BYD, for example, I think they're now the biggest electric car manufacturer in the world. They've overtaken Tesla in terms of sales. Obviously, they have China and the Far East pretty wrapped up, but I think they're offering that from what I've seen their cars, they look really quality. Um, if a little bit, I mean, I don't think them. I still think there's still a thing about designing electric cars that just people just seem to design them like how you design a car in 2005, thinking it should look now. I don't think that they're often not very designed like the BYDs, for example. The SUVs just kind of look very bland, and then the cars just look like they're Teslas. And I think Teslas look really old-fashioned now. They look like mid 2010 or early 2010s cars. Um, but funnily enough, the Cybertruck is the only one that actually looks modern, and it's not a good thing in that car's case because it's so fucking ugly. Okay, so we've had a Nissan. No, oh, fuck, no. We've had a Mitsubishi. Now I need something that isn't an SUV. And let's do a Polo. I've got a nice Polo in here. I've got a lovely little 1.2 base. Oh, let's do this. Germany in its well. I mean, obviously this isn't going to stand a chance of getting in the top 5, but cute little car. I also have a Yugo that I need to do. Oof. So weird. So weird that 30 years ago, all of the cheap cars were coming in from Eastern Europe and Russia. And now China's like sending them in. And the cars China are sending in are like pretty damn good. I've watched some of the reviews of them, and sometimes I'm like, you're being really nitpicky about that. Um, But I also am sympathetic to the idea that because I mean I hate the idea of having to go into screens for everything. Right, let's go. This is such a base model, it doesn't even have a stereo. Oh, this is leisurely. What can I say? Volkswagen's always been known for making quality cars, and the Polo's always been considered like a good sort of mature super mini. But also Volkswagens are on the pricier side. So it was always like the best to drive is the Fiesta usually, the best quality is the Polo, and then the cheaper one is like usually the Opel Corsa, and so that was their 3-way split. But then, of course, you started getting cars like Hyundai Getz, which are cheap, but actually surprisingly well equipped. And then, of course, you had things like the Renault Clio, which were fun and a little bit better looking. And then, like, well, Citroen Super Minis have always been weird. So they had the Saxo, and then Peugeot had the 106, but then Peugeot got the 206, which is really their Super Mini, and the 106 was just their little city car. And then Citroen introduced the C3. I don't remember the C3 ever really being taken. It was always considered comfortable, like not like a comfy car. That's kind of what Citroen's usually looked up as. And then the 206, 207 stuff were like again good looking, but British motoring press usually biased against French cars, and in fairness, they often aren't that reliable. When you compare them overall, if you do like a big table of what are the most reliable cars, I think you find Peugeot and Citroën tend to be near the bottom, and Renault can vary depending on the model. So yeah, good old relentless, dependable Polo, which has been around since like the 70s. So like with the you had the Golf and the success of the Golf, and then the Polo came in, which was, and it was a three-door for a very long time. So they did a three-door, like I don't know if they called it a coupe, but it kind of was a coupe. And then they had a three-door estate as well, and the estates were very popular when I was a kid. You used to see a lot of those 80s. They were super boxy, and they were you very rarely saw any of the coupe versions. But then I think the third gen, you would see, or maybe it was, I don't know if it was a facelift of the second gen, but you would see them a lot more as coupes than you would the previous gen. And then when they introduced the fourth gen in the 90s, that was, well, third or fourth, I'm not sure which, that was like the boxier car that was very similar to this, but older without these round headlights, or I don't think it had a rear quarter light either. And that became the shape that it's kind of had ever since, really. Like 5 doors became the most popular versions. Still did a 3-door version until I think a couple of generations after that. Like this gen still had a 3-door version, and the gen after, but the current gen, no. And now, like with most cars, they seem to be, the future seems to be very uncertain because people want SUVs, mini SUVs, and car companies don't know whether to create new brands or new names or just convert the current ones. I mean, the thing is, for like company cars and sort of fleet sales, it's still, cars still do make a bit of sense in terms of they tend to have lower emissions, and so they do better tax-wise, but it's not what people want. People want to buy SUVs, basically. So, but there's definitely a place for smaller cars, like you can tell. You can see that companies still invest in them and still see that they have some kind of potential future. They can make them SUV-ish. They don't have to be. And I still think the best-selling car in Europe was like the Peugeot 208 a couple of years ago. But that is fleet sales. That's rental cars driving it up. Rental cars, sort of business cars. When you actually look at like sales figures for individual people, I would guess it skews towards, like, I know in Spain the Hyundai Tucson was a big one. What did I see recently? What did I see recently that surprised me? It was like a I don't think, was it a Kia of some sort? No, I don't think it was a Kia. I remember seeing like the MG ZS was like top 5 or something and being like, wow. Because that's the first gen ZS as well, which isn't, I don't think it looks very nice. Or it looks alright. But I don't think it looks as good as the new one, which looks great. But certainly you're not really seeing like Ford Focuses or Vauxhall Astras, Opel Astras get into the top 5 anymore. What was the car that I remember seeing? I'm trying to think, was I surprised because it was like a traditional car, or I think it was some kind of mini SUV. But I mean, that doesn't narrow it down at all. Oh, it might be the Renault Kadjar. Is it the Kadjar? That sounds like such a weird name when you say it. But the SUV version of the Clio, whatever that is. Oh, this car is not liking going up hills. I don't even know how fast I'm going, but like I can see I'm slipping beneath 60. There we go. It's gone down a gear. Oh, the car market, eh? I'm interested to see where things are in 10 years' time, what kind of proliferation those Chinese brands have. Like, definitely looking at, like, so there's been a few comparisons between the cheapest electric cars you can buy, one of which is the Dacia Spring, which is obviously a Romanian brand owned by Renault. Typically considered like the cheapest cars you can buy in their class are usually a Dacia. And so they currently do the cheapest electric car you can get. So that's your Spring, and you kind of in Madrid at least they're everywhere because they're used by a rental car firm as like pay-as-you-go rental cars. But that was the first gen, and then they don't look very nice. The new facelifted version looks much nicer, and I've seen a couple of them, but they look like private owners actually. I actually see one when I drop my dog off at her guarderia, her daycare. And I see a little gold one that I sometimes follow to work. Well, that sounded creepy. I follow to work. I mean, when I go from the daycare center to work, I'm going the same way as it for a bit. Ooh, lovely, lovely. Dun-dun-dun-dun. Okay, that should do it. Send to you. But Leap Motor, which is that joint venture between Stellantis and the Chinese Leap Motor, that I've seen they've got a little city car. I think it's called the CO1 or CO3 or something, or CO2 maybe. I don't think it's probably not CO2. That has connotations, and it's a little electric car, and it's like a little bit more expensive than the cheapest Spring you can get, but it only has one it has no options, no nothing. It's just that's the only car you can get. The only thing you can choose is the color. Whereas the Spring comes in, I think, two or three different trims with two or three different battery levels. And so actually you can, if you compare like with like, you actually get to you actually find out the Leap motor is a bit cheaper. And some of the comparisons I've seen, like, I mean, it's I mean, it's a city car. Like it looks a bit like a Daewoo Matiz actually when I look at it, but it's styled as if almost like it's taking cues from the Mini. Um, very very straight, and it has very odd angles. But it literally it when they compare like the sounds and the interior quality and stuff, like the Leap motor is significantly ahead of the Spring. The Spring looks a bit cool. I think a lot of people think it just looks like a more of a more interesting car, and the interior has a bit more going for it. But the Leap motor, I'm really surprised. You should look up some comparisons there if you're in Europe and you're going to be getting thinking about getting a small electric car soon, because it's really fascinating. And like the way the car industry's going at the moment is very strange. So Volkswagen have done like a big deal with an American electric car company whose name I forget. I think it's with E. For like software and stuff, because software seems to be like a big growth area for electric cars, like how to utilize data and stuff to make it so that the car can be more efficient, etc., etc. But Volkswagen also have deals in the Far East and China, so to like build their cars cheaper, component-wise. They've done deals with Ford, like some of the new Ford electric cars are built on the same platform as Volkswagen. And and obviously Volkswagen internally have Cupra and Skoda that they're sharing their platforms with. Well, and Audi as well. And then I guess to a much lesser degree, I mean, I guess they don't. Their Porsches aren't really based on Volkswagens in any meaningful sense, but I guess they might share some components. Unless still Bentley as well. But yeah, interesting because Volkswagen's still considered like, one of the. Well, I don't know. When you read a lot of comments, actually, you see people don't think they're very quality anymore. A lot of people don't like. I kind of get like I do get it. There's a period maybe in the late 2000s, early 2000s where chunky, really quality car interiors reached a peak, and then screens started taking over. I think basically Tesla arrived and basically said, "Hey, the future of the car interior is just a huge iPad in the middle of the dashboard," and then real minimalism. And everybody else was like, "Wow, we want that," and they pushed into that, and it's like, it's, I don't know. A lot of people, I've never seen a car reviewer who prefers the screen to buttons, and I don't like. Buttons just work well. Even people I know who don't really drive are like, "Oh, I was in a rental car or something, and I had to do all the aircon through the screen. It was really annoying." And it's like, really, all it takes is car manufacturers to figure that out. Like, funnily enough, it seems like Citroen and Opel seem to be learning that lesson a bit. Like the new Frontera and C3, and obviously the C3 is going to be the basis of probably the next Corsa and the next what are the other ones they built? Peugeot 208s and stuff like that. That they've got like manually controlled aircon units and stuff like that. And I think Renault the same. Whereas a lot of other manufacturers seem to be going hell for leather into the screen thing. And a lot of people are saying, I don't like that. I don't like capacitive touch buttons or haptics or things like that. I just want a button that I press and it does something. And I kind of agree with the sentiment. I mean, you give me like, I think like an Audi A8 from like 2012, I'm pretty sure it's going to be like the perfect interior. Just make that smaller and put it in other cars. But instead everything is like, oh, you want to change the aircon? Go into the screen. Swipe this little, not even a button, this little bar. Like, yeah. Doesn't give quality. Like, my feeling is Tesla doesn't feel quality in generally. It just feels very modern, and people can mistake that for like, wow, this is really great to use, as opposed to this is really modern and different, but not necessarily ergonomic or easy. And in fact, I think the Euro NCAP are actually bringing in some parameters in the coming years to basically say how hard is it to access stuff whilst driving. Basically, if you have to navigate screens, then you're going to lose points versus if you just have a button. So that will hopefully push manufacturers away from that obsession with putting everything in a touchscreen. I think that might be one of the reasons why Volkswagen teamed up with that company as well, because they want better. They want to be able to start doing more research into sort of user. Where are we? 36. Holy shit, that's bad. That's bad. And I drove really well. Oh, wow. I didn't crash or anything. Oh, I'm below the S-Max, which I trashed. Oh, okay. I'm above the Dacia Sandero, which was what started this. That was the first one I ever did. Look, all the way back on January 6th. And so I'm, what, how many seconds faster? 2 seconds faster than that. Okay. Octavia. Okay, which I trashed. Oh, that Fiat 126 I didn't film, but was like, took me forever. 205. Okay, yeah. 205. Okay, yeah. I make that my second and third video. Um, Land Rover Defender. Okay. T-Cross. Oh, that T-Cross video, which I did with the Logan estate, has like my lowest views, and it's one of the funniest videos I ever did. Oh, and I'm not far off. I'm only 5 seconds behind that terrible Lexus I did the other week. Oh, and Mark Fit. You know what? Actually, this isn't the worst company to be among. Like it was a terribly slow car. What can I say? Like usually, I mean, I didn't even crash it, which means like, there's no excuse. It was just slow. So well, I managed. I got a chance to rant about cars. Or well, I didn't even rant. I suppose I just thought out loud about cars, and I did get into top five with that with the Outlander, which is interesting. But yeah, poor Polo, very slow. Bottom five. Just snuck into the bottom five, which I think I should be tracking as well. But yeah, thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. I've still got quite a few. I've got quite a few mods. I've still got quite a few potential top fives that I don't want to do because they're all Mercedes and BMWs, and it's like it's foregone conclusion because they're obviously the base model of a BMW and the base model of a Mercedes are still built for some kind of quality and power, whereas the base model of a Fiesta obviously isn't built for speed at all. So yeah, I'm still hopefully trying to find some cars that are like a little bit out left field. I was hoping the Volvo and the Lexus would do that, but they didn't. And surprisingly, the MG did. The Skoda has done it, and now the Mitsubishi has done it. So I've still got high hopes, vague hopes that I can get a non-Mercedes or BMW back into the top five as well. Something I've got some things on my sleeve. But yeah, thank you for watching and enjoy the rest of your day, week, month, year. Hasta luego.